Week 13, primetime props, Thanksgiving edition. I'm Jeff Edelstein, your host. I'm with In-Game. Check us out. That's where we cover news. Props.com is where we cover the fun stuff. Props, mostly. I'm joined, as always, Mr. Bales, Mr. Carlucci, Mr. Eister. Good afternoon, fellows. You ready for Thanksgiving?
Ready. The content is crazy, and it's all free at props.com. It's fun and free, and usually you can't get fun and free in the same sentence anymore. So you said it. It felt like we just did this, but every now and then we toot our own horns on this show when it's warranted. So Keith Eister, Juwan Jennings, first touchdown, 11-1. Y'all had it at props.com, 100% free. Hey, good hit yesterday. So revisit that. Did things go as you thought it would?
Yeah, I mean, it's just you get into the numbers and you don't always see what you expect to see. Obviously, I knew Christian McCaffrey was going to be a heavy favorite to score first. Like, dude has the best role in the league. His receiving role alone is enough to make him a favorite in any game that he plays in. So you had the shortest number, I believe, for first touchdown we've seen all season. It was like plus 240 for McCaffrey to score first. Kittle had a nice number at plus 750, and I thought that's the direction I was going to end up in. We've seen an increasing role from him, but you start digging into the numbers and you're like, hey, you know what? This Juwan Jennings fella has almost the exact same role at the goal line as George Kittle does. And he's 11-1 instead of 7-1. So we're just going to take that value. And sometimes it works out for us. The reception was a little bit short of the goal line. I thought it was going to be one of those heartbreak moments where he gets stopped at the 1 or the 2. McCaffrey punches it in, the chalk hits, and nobody is all that happy. But he slipped the tackle right there at about the 1.5 yard line, and he sneaked into the box for us. It was fantastic.
Let me ask you this. I'll open it up to Bales and Jeff before we get going. So did that change your perspective on who the Carolina Panthers are this season based upon what you saw last night?
Week to week, this whole league is drunk. I mean, I thought I like the Panthers to cover yesterday. They didn't. But I guess the Niners offense when healthy, but they didn't even look that. I mean, they looked okay. It wasn't like I don't know.
The thing for me is that I was actually on the Niners -7, and there's legitimately one reason. Excluding the overtime win Carolina had, which I think kind of skewed things a little bit. What was it, 2 weeks ago against Atlanta? They won in Atlanta in overtime. Dude, they are legitimately atrocious on the road. Like one of the worst teams in the entire league on the road. I think they scored like over 13 points once. I think people kind of were getting into them. They won in Green Bay, which was an absolute fluke. And, it's the 1 out of 100 times that game ends that way. And then they went out and they did drop 30 on Atlanta, but I don't know. That's still relatively close to Carolina. Like, it's not like you're doing all this travel and whatnot. So then felt like a letdown to go out to San Francisco on top of, dude, they could have lost by 50 if Mac Jones was in there, right?
Wait, when are we going to have that discussion?
Purdy is the only quarterback, I believe, to throw 3 first half interceptions in the history of the NFL. He's done it twice. Nobody else has done it twice. That's
impressive.
Yeah.
I just feel like Atlanta is kind of turning into the league's punching bag for offenses. We saw Miami last month put up 34 against them, was it? I mean, Carolina hung 30 on them. I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to evaluate. I didn't see much from the Panthers that really wanted me to believe in them. I think they've obviously taken steps from last year and previous years. I mean, Rico Dowdle has also had some really nice matchups.
It looked like a great matchup yesterday as well. The Niners defense has just been, battered, bruised, and otherwise out. But it was just, the Panthers possibly showed who they really were yesterday.
But you have to think they're still alive in the NFC South.
Yeah,
the Falcons aren't there,
So sad.
and now Baker is dealing with a shoulder injury. And the Bucks haven't looked themselves in a few weeks either. Like, and we know the Saints aren't competitive. So like that division is still wide open for the Panthers to fight in.
The whole league is wide. I mean, look at the teams coming into the season the Chiefs, the Eagles, right? The Ravens, the Niners, right? I mean, I probably go right down the line. Is there one team that's that we thought was going to, the Lions even? I mean, the Lions are lucky to be 7-4. All these teams that we thought were going to be running away with it are struggling a little bit. I mean, I guess we'll find out a lot more in the next few weeks, but maybe starting Thursday.
I'm confident in one team in the entire NFL. And that doesn't mean that I think that they're just going to go run away with the Super Bowl because they're not so much better than everyone else. There's only one team that I am very confident saying is good.
I want to guess.
Yeah.
I got to guess too.
Go ahead. Who do you think?
I think you're on the...
Yeah, it's the Rams. They're the only team that I think anyone can feel even slightly decent about right now.
Well, Stafford, I mean, the way that offense is humming, like I feel like Stafford, just for kicks could play blindfolded and go 20 for 30 with 2 touchdowns. He's just, I mean, he's not missing. It's such a precision offense.
Yeah, I mean, we talk Sean McVay a lot, and I think it's warranted. What a great pair, him and Stafford, and obviously the elite receivers. And, kudos to that staff and the scouts who believed in Puka Nacua. I mean, what a story he is, and it fell right into Sean McVay's lap is unreal. I still think we're almost in a battle of who's going to suck the least in January, like who's going to make the least egregious amount of errors. Quick story that no one really cares about. I went out for a quick bite to eat in the 4:00 window on Sunday. I'm in PA. Bar was full of Eagles fans. There was one Cowboys fan, and it was a spectacle early. I'm a neutral party in that fan debate, but I mean, it was like the worst kind of Eagles fans too. They were like clapping. When people clap when the plane lands that you just hate? It was like that group of people, like 4-yard out and catch. They were all in unison clapping. Like, wow, you gained 4 yards every play. So, when they were up 21-0, it was a party. And that poor Dallas fan. And then they came all the way back, and we stopped and went grocery shopping. And I said to my wife, man, I wish we were there for the end of that game just so I could see that one poor Dallas fan. Probably got beat up in the parking lot or something. But I guess that's kind of just goes hand in hand. Who like they're as maddening as the Eagles are. Like that, if you clip parts of every game, they're the best team in football. But for whatever reason, and Bales, you highlighted some of the just dumbness that Nick Sirianni is doing. They cannot hammer out a football game. And we'll talk a little bit about the Bears and the Eagles, which, 2 teams with decent records. But, Keith, I think every Bears game feels like a near-death experience at this point. So I just don't understand why the Eagles can't get it together. I don't know who to blame. But, boy, was that a humbling experience. And go figure. A.J. Brown has a squeaky wheel game, and they lose. He probably didn't care after the game, though. He got his numbers, right? It doesn't matter. A.J. Brown doesn't.
They should have won that game, obviously. But, they got a 3-game lead in the division. Their schedule, home against the Bears, in against the Chargers away, home against the Raiders, in D.C., on the road in Buffalo, and then home against D.C. I mean, the 2 Commanders game and the Raiders games, I mean, they could just show up and they're going to win. I mean, they got the division. I wonder how much of it, and I know this is probably not true, but I wonder if there's a little bit at this point of like, we're holding back. We're not showing our cards. We're not showing anything. When the playoffs come, do they like really turn it out?
I would say, sure, that makes sense, except for I think, one, for that to be true, Sirianni would have to be a smart coach, which I don't think he is. And 2, do you remember when they, in just a completely meaningless spot, faked the tush push for that incredible play for Saquon to go for the touchdown? That's a playoff play that you set up the entire season. They did it when they were like easily winning in week 3 or
That's a great point.
Like just mind-blowingly bad decisions.
Right. Well, and again, even if my theory was right, after yesterday, it's shot to shit. Or after Sunday, because you can't lose that game. And then, now you have to come out and really play, I think. But
Just lastly, they're also one anomaly blocked field goal against the Rams away from things being even more interesting in the NFC. Like the Eagles are they are so broken at times, but they're equally as dominant the other times of the game. I've never seen anything like it. So they're still my pick to win the Super Bowl. It doesn't feel good, but in theory, they are built to suck the least. I mean, with the way they want to play the game. And you look at Jalen Hurts. If I blindfolded you or whatever, or threw you in the middle of the season and said Jalen Hurts had 17 touchdowns in one pick, you'd probably say the Eagles are maybe undefeated. But there has just been so much slop and so many mishaps, so many coaching miscues, that it's just kind of hard to believe that those are his numbers. And you wouldn't know it with the ridicule he's taken. And I don't know, some of it's warranted. I mean, he's in Mac Jones would kill for those weapons. I don't know. It's just absolutely bizarre. And of course you can't point, the full blame at Jalen Hurts for that debacle, but maybe the weirdest team I've ever seen. I don't know. Just I can't really put my finger on it. Anyway, speaking of weird, before we move on to Thursday games and Friday, and while you guys are filing in here, do us a favor. Give us a follow on YouTube, please. We'd really appreciate it. We'll keep bringing you these live shows every week. We're at a special time slot this week because of the holidays, and this is when we could get the band together. So we figured we'd talk some Thursday football. And Bells, Keith, and I will be back on Wednesday. There's a massive NBA slate before the holidays, so we will be back around noon Eastern on Wednesday to talk a little NBA. We wanted to sneak that in for the big slate tomorrow. But Keith Eister, of course, you also predicted that Jameis Winston would lead the NFL in passing yards on Sunday, right? I mean, you said it, Jeff. The NFL is freaking drunk. So I don't know. Just want to get your take, Keith, since we rambled a little bit there about the Eagles game and the Lions play on Thanksgiving. What did you see from that Lions-Giants game? Does anything worry you about Detroit, or is that just the NFL?
I mean, Jameis is going to be a guy that takes chances. So when he finds success, it's going to come in big chunk plays, and the Lions definitely struggled against that.
There were also messed up plays. They were, flea flickers and, passes to the quarterback.
The Jameis reception was one of the best catches of the season. It was awesome. He looked like a legitimate receiver on that play. That was an awesome play. And Gunnar Olszewski also avoided a sack in the pocket, or not. I guess it's not a sack at that point, but he stepped up in the pocket, Gunnar making legitimate quarterback plays to Jameis making legitimate wide receiver plays. It was a crazy game all around. Obviously, the Giants have nothing to play for, and the Lions have everything to play for. So it's a little bit different in that regard, in that the Giants can take a bunch of chances. They happen to hit some of those chances. But yeah, if we're being honest, Detroit's defense, you have to have a little concern there, which I don't hate as a Bears fan. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is incredible, and the things he did, 15 carries and 200 rushing yards, is just insane. Added a bunch on the ground as well. But yeah, I don't think the Lions look like the juggernaut that we all thought they were. Maybe they can figure out the defense. The offense we can feel good about, minus Jameson Williams, who we'll get to. But the offense, I think, is legit. The defense, you have to have some concerns about. But again, I do think there was a little bit of that. We don't care. Let's just have Jameis chuck it up a bunch in that game, and it happened to work out for him. So not a huge concern on the Lions just yet, but maybe not the top of the league juggernaut we thought they were.
I don't want to get political here, and so I'll keep it independent. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. You should be actively searching for Jameis Winston as your next presidential candidate.
Yeah,
I'd vote for him.
I think we could agree on that. Yeah, at this point, he would get my vote too.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Also, before we get started here, Luke, you said the band back together. If we were a band, who guitarist, bassist, drummer, vocalist? What do you think?
Man, I don't know.
Man, you lead the whole thing.
I'm the drummer. I'm keeping the beat. I'm not getting out in front of the mic. Come on.
I don't know if that was a question.
I have zero musical talent, so.
This is a hypothetical.
A band.
Guys, I really don't want to get in a band right now.
All right, so we're not in a band.
I don't even know what band we would be, but after Grande in the YouTube chat last week said I was Kevin Blackistone, I I'd be a little scared to see what band the chat would think we would be. So I'm not totally sure. But yeah, obviously, like massive slate Thursday. I mean, if we want to toot our horns a little bit more, I mean, we're wrong sometimes. We're right sometimes. When we're right, it's fun. When we're wrong, we're also pretty blunt about it. But how about JSN doing JSN things against Tennessee? Led the NFL in target share last week. No surprise. Had a 66% air yard share last week. Unbelievable, but no surprise. And in that same game, Tajay Spears stuck out in the fourth quarter for me and got those receiving props after he lost 5 yards on his first catch of the game. I said, you got to be kidding me. So we did have some calls go right on Friday, which is nice.
Speaking about JSN, Seattle plays Minnesota. Can we discuss what is happening? Does anyone think that this is not just a soft benching of JJ?
No,
McCarthy?
I think he really does have a concussion. I think Justin Jefferson whapped him upside the head on the plane ride home.
I mean, what are we like? Max Brosmer's starting this week, isn't he?
Yeah,
right? That's where we're going. Could you imagine if? I mean, he's not going to light the world on fire, but what if he throws for like 220 and 2 touchdowns or something? Do we really have a Max Brosmer versus JJ McCarthy debate going at this point?
Well, I think McCarthy. I think they're done with him. How could you not? I mean, he's there's a difference between like a quarterback looking lousy because they're young. We saw it with Cam Ward this year, like even like Sanders when he came in relief. And there's a difference between what McCarthy's doing. He is just he looks completely lost. And I forget which podcast I was listening to. Somebody made somebody mentioned. And it's true, he's had 2 off seasons, right? He's been with the team now for 2 years. You would think he'd have a little bit figured out, but it's bad.
Those mechanics are so bad too, and that's
everything.
Like, I think he's going to be fine, and I'm like, dude, it's been quite some time, and if O'Connell can't fix your mechanics in that long, like that might just be a ridiculous issue that's not going to get fixed easily.
No,
it's the supporting cast too, because that's all in place for him. Like the offensive line is decent. He has some of the best weapons in the entire league. You look at some of the struggles of like top draft picks in the past. Bryce Young had a decent offensive line, but had 0 weapons to throw to. Caleb Williams had decent weapons, but had 0 offensive line to protect him. Like there are all these things that you can point at prospects of past and say, well, they had these issues to deal with. JJ McCarthy has everything in place for him. There's no excuse for him, but it's a JJ McCarthy problem.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember off the top of my head what Twitter account I saw. But McCarthy is also historically bad in EPA per dropback. I saw the only other qualified candidate that's been worse than him in NFL history. The only one in NFL history, was none other than Jamarcus Russell. Yeah. So elite.
Also saw that tweet.
Elite wrong company to be in, I suppose. But yeah, listen, with that supporting cast again, you put average Joe XYZ and you probably at least 500 at this point in the saddle there.
How does Davis Mills might look good in the purple.
Davis Mills looks good where he is. He objectively played better than CJ Stroud.
Darnold would be an MVP candidate.
Oh,
they brought him back.
Yeah, for sure.
Crazy. Hey, you got to credit Seattle. I mean, they took a huge risk and nobody liked that move. And I know there's probably a couple people that did, but the consensus was, wow, the offensive line is shit. He has one weapon at this point. Many people predicted a JSN leap, but to this magnitude is ridiculous. Granted, he's getting all the volume he wants there. You can say what you want about Rashid Shaheed. He's not a volume shooter, Carmelo Anthony, if you will. He's a down the field stretch type of guy. He's amazing. His route running is so crisp. Like, he's unreal. Yeah, the Titans are really bad, but he is tearing up every secondary this season. And if I can say, I was pretty impressed. I've been becoming growingly more impressed the last month with Cam Ward, who is still throwing to like the Van Jeffersons of the world, straight up practice squad guys. But he's shown me enough where I'm intrigued, and that was a pretty good football game to watch. I mean, it could have went south after halftime, but they also covered the spread, which I'm sure a lot of money was on Seattle. And I'm a little bit worried about Tennessee beating the Jaguars in one of these two games they have against Jacksonville coming up, because Jacksonville is hashtag not good. So that was a win for me personally as a Titans fan. The Titans lost. Say what you want about me as a fan, but they looked okay doing it. So we're still on par for that first draft pick. Cam Ward's on his feet and he looked good. Throwing to Van Jefferson and James Prochet. I mean, Jesus God. So anyway, let me just spit some stuff out for you real quick, and then we can move on to Lions Packers, Jeff. But last week, speaking of, Amon-Ra St. Brown led the NFL last week in air yard share, 71% via fantasy points, 31% target share in his first game without Sam Laporta. A.D. Mitchell, 69% air yard share for the Jets. That's something. How about that? Ted McMillan, you want to see a good air yard share there. You got it. Nearly 60% last night. Devontae Smith, 57% air yard share last week. Igbuka is up there. Jefferson, Jaden Higgins, the Davis Mills effect, baby. 53% air yard share on Thursday Night Football against Buffalo. And he also had a 30% target share in that game. Michael Wilson keeps doing stuff while Marvin Harrison is out. Darnell Mooney, massive air yard share, not a ton of targets. The Falcons are atrocious. I guess that's really it. Just some stuff that stuck out overall to me. You guys have any like statistical takeaways or anything you saw you want to?
Yeah, I got one. If DraftKings gave points for air yards and A.D. Mitchell, I think I'd have about $100,000 in my pocket this week.
I also believe that they should start for Showdown. They should start doxing quarterbacks like 5 yards per interception or 5 points per interception. I mean, like Brock Purdy played objectively terrible last night, and he lost 3 entire fantasy points for throwing 3 picks. I feel like in Showdown they should magnify mistakes a little bit more. Just my take. In case you couldn't tell, I was a Brock Purdy fader last night, and my lineup didn't quite get there even without him. So,
all right. Let's move forward, shall we? Onward and upward to what I'm going to call a great trio of Thanksgiving Day games. I always feel like there's always a clunker in here somewhere. I don't see a clunker. I see 3 pretty fun games. So let's start with the first one. Detroit Lions at home, as always, on Thanksgiving, 2.5-point favorites over the visiting Packers. Very healthy 49.5 total, which kind of surprised me a little bit, being the way the Packers have been playing this year, both on offense and defense. But all right, well, listen, we got a lot to talk about in this game. Bales, I'll kick it over to you. Where are you starting with this game?
Yeah, I think you probably just want to start with Jahmyr Gibbs. I know it always feels a little gross for when a guy has just like an absurd game like last week to go right back to him. But Green Bay, essentially, you just have pretty much been beating them on the ground recently. Like we saw Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason do well last week for Minnesota until they basically got played out of the game. We've seen it for a few weeks now where running backs can kind of do that. Jahmyr Gibbs more or less faded out in week 1 because Green Bay got out to that early lead. They did really well against the run. They did well against limiting the yards after catch for him, but I think he still had like 6 receptions or something there. I think more or less Detroit's best path to victory, and to be fair, I think it's Green Bay too, is going to be who controls the ball, who establishes the run. I don't always think that that's like the easiest way to go, and I think that sometimes you do want to take those shots and whatnot, but I think whoever can control the ball and whoever can get the kind of churn out long drives and first downs, they're going to be the team that wins this game. I think you basically do that via either Jahmyr Gibbs or on the other side, depends if Jacobs plays. I would assume that he does. If he does, I don't know. I don't really want to touch Green Bay's running backs then. If he's out, Emmanuel Wilson looked really good last week. He looks explosive. I would be completely cool going back to him because very clearly Green Bay is willing to give him 20-plus touches the same way that they would Jacobs. But overall, I think that Gibbs is pretty much the safest player in this entire game. And I think that that's probably where I would start.
Keith?
I don't disagree with the Gibbs take. Obviously, he's coming off a fantastic game. He's one of the most explosive players in the entire league. But Luch touched on a stat that really stood out to me, that 31% target share for Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Packers have an elite pass rush. Might need to get the ball out quick here. That's Amon-Ra St. Brown territory. We could see another 30% target share here. Jameson Williams, I just don't know what to do with this guy anymore. I thought we were getting him back on track. He ran 37 routes last week. He managed to earn all of 3 targets. Threw up the old goose egg. Was a massive disappointment. And anywhere you played him, DFS or prop bets like us, Jeff and I were both on him a little bit last week, and we haven't seen any consistency from him. Thought the change to Campbell and the play calling might fix that, but it's still the Amon-Ra St. Brown show here. And the way that this game sets up with the elite pass rush on the other side, I think that they have to lean into that even more here. So over 6.5 receptions is the bet there. I don't think I officially said it, but
yeah, with JMO, I think we're at the point where if you like him in a matchup, if you think, if you have a sense that this is the week or that's going to be the week, I think you're just better off just going, plus, at 100 yards or over kind of thing instead of, because it's like zero or everything, it seems, right? So you might as well go everything whenever you think you're going to hit it. But I don't know. Yeah.
That's what's said is it would surprise no one if he came away with 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game.
Right.
Right. I mean, it'd be surprising, of course, but we'd be like, oh, that's Jameson Williams. He can do that.
Right.
I think that's the exact same conversation you can have about Xavier Worthy. Like 2 guys with similar profile who had huge roles last year and are really fast and can stretch the field, and both have been equally disappointing at extremely high ADPs, in the offseason all year.
I just think Williams, though, has it in him to be like a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Hot take? I don't know.
It's pretty hot.
I think he has it in him.
I like him. I think he's really, really talented. I agree that I think his talent really, really outweighs his production.
Right.
I'm just, top 5's pretty.
No, but the point I'm making. So, all right, he's not going to be top 5 as long as he's on this Lions team with Gibbs, with Amon-Ra, with Laporta. But you put him in a situation where he is the featured receiver. I mean, coming out of college, remember this guy before he broke his leg, he was the consensus number 1 receiver in college football, right? I mean, we're going back 5-6 years. Am I remembering this correctly?
He was certainly up there, and then the whole gambling thing, and I mean, now it's all coming back to me now.
I have 40% of them in fucking best ball, so just leave me alone, all right?
I mean, he couldn't be in much better of a situation, though. Really, I mean, I don't know.
They got. I mean, he had one catch that was called back on penalty last week. That I remember.
I just, Keith mentioned Gibbs receptions, and it's going to be Gibbs. It's a chalky, unsexy answer, but he had 12 freaking targets last week, second on the team. I mean, St. Brown, 31% target share, Gibbs, 28%, then just single-digit target shares for the rest of the entire team. And I don't think it's that far-fetched to think that the volume is going to be super, super condensed now through the year, with the absence of Laporta. So, I think you can, if you're making DFS lineups, it's a lot of money to tie up, and Green Bay's a good defense, but I think there's a world where you can play both of them without Jared Goff. If that's where the volume is going to be and you want to be right about that, I think you can be. I want to serve this one up there because over the weekend, Bale said to me, when do we have the conversation that Emmanuel Wilson is actually better than Josh Jacobs? And maybe we can have that now. I don't know. That's obviously a key cog to the slate. Is Josh Jacobs going to play? I have no idea if he practiced this week or today. But that being said, different number of sample sizes here. Wilson has about half of the rushing attempts as Jacobs this year, but he averages slightly more yards after contact per attempt than Josh Jacobs. And he also averages more yards per carry than Josh Jacobs. I'm not making this up. It is what it is. It's black and white. It's in the numbers here. I don't know. Maybe the Packers have Josh Jacobs 2.0 at home. Different bills, different types of players. But I don't think it's that much of a downgrade without Josh Jacobs for this Packers team. Is that a hot take? Or Bales, I'll throw it over to you.
I don't think so. We talked about it last week where I said I'm not really sure that excluding goal line, it's really goal line is where I want Josh Jacobs. He's so good at finding the end zone because obviously he's so big, so powerful. But Emmanuel Wilson, it looks way more explosive. I mean, I would need to look into their breakaway plays. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I can tell you in terms of the eye test, which I don't like doing very often, but if you see it enough, Emmanuel Wilson looks way more explosive, and he looked good at the goal line last week anyway. So I don't know. I think Jacobs probably plays. The only thing that might hinder him is that it's a short week, but he did try on Sunday, and he said that he thought he felt well enough. Basically, he was pushing the trainers to let him play, and they decided that he wasn't going to. So give 4 more days on top of that, and it seems like a spot where he would return, especially like Thanksgiving. You get the matchup against Detroit. This is a huge thing. No offense to the Bears whatsoever, but I'm pretty skeptical that they end the season in the number 1 spot in the North. I think you probably, if you think that Jacobs is a difference maker, I think you probably do what you can to get him on the field.
Yeah.
Christian Watson led the Packers in targets last week. I'm not overreacting. Keith, you're shaking your head. I just think that's the Packers. I think it's an unpredictable, fairly low volume, spread it out kind of offense. I wouldn't bank on that happening every week. Romeo Doubs had 2 targets. I wouldn't be shocked on Thanksgiving if he had, 7 or 8 of them.
I think the Packers, are they the ultimate this year's team of like, are they good? Like we all think they are, but like maybe not. I can't find another team that fits that mold like that. Like they're good, but are they really? I guess we'll find out.
The defense is good, and I can't understand how the offense wouldn't be good.
Right.
Like the weapons that they have there, Christian Watson has really looked good. That's why I was shaking my head. Like you can tell he is earning more of a role there. Matthew Golden was out last week, but even before that, we saw Christian Watson really start to. He looks healthy for the first time in a couple of years.
That 46.5 number that looks a little low, maybe, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think also longest reception has Christian Watson's name all over it. If you bet those kind of markets with just the speed he has. And I don't know, I talked about Jalen Hurts at the top of the show, 17 touchdowns, we're in week, 13? I mean, way less than 2 touchdowns a game. Maybe Jordan Love's the answer. Yeah, another guy with a really nice touchdown to interception ratio this year. 15 touchdowns to 3 picks for Jordan Love. It's all fine and great, and coaches love when you take care of the ball and whatever cliche garbage you want to say. Teams with the plus-minus advantage are typically winners and blah, blah, blah. But you're barely you're throwing just over 1 touchdown a week. Perhaps these guys are as careful and meticulous they are with the football and not making dumb mistakes. It can work both ways. I mean, you need to open it up a little bit. And I'm just looking at, not that I'm a game log hunter, but obviously, Jordan Love's last 3 games, 139 yards, 174 yards, 176 yards. I don't know. That's not going to cut it at the NFL level. It's just not, especially when you're not the Eagles and you don't have Saquon Barkley, who really isn't playing as well in his own right with the kind of regression from the offensive line. But maybe it's a slate Jordan Love problem. And again, the numbers are whatever. But even the eye test, he does look a lot less uncomfortable than you'd like for him to look, especially after sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for another guy who's had a ton of time. And he went on a really torrid stretch a couple of years ago where, he earned some money and he looked really good. But I don't know. Jordan Love is kind of just a guy for me in this league. He's a middle of the pack guy who I'd be fine with it if he was my team's quarterback, but also, not certain he's going to help me hoist the Lombardi anytime soon.
No, I'm completely against you on that. I'm 100% against. And the reasons why. If you look at any meaningful stat, Jordan Love is top 5 in it. Anything that matters, Jordan Love, minimally, I guess you can drop it to like top 8. He's near the top of the NFL in all of it. 2, I don't know. Personally, I don't care that much about touchdowns because like Green Bay gets inside the 5 and they hand the ball off over and over and over and over, and they'll do it 30 times in a row to get a running back a touchdown. Whereas like Stafford will throw the ball every single time on the 1 to Devontae Adams. So like, I don't know. I also think that Jordan Love, the reason I think people don't like Jordan Love, and you're not the only one, I'm more of the outlier on him than you are, is because he shows no emotion. He is the calmest player I've ever seen in my life. whether they're down 30, up 40. If he just threw an interception, he doesn't care about anything. Not to say he doesn't care. He doesn't show on his face that he cares about anything, and he just constantly looks unimpressed. And I think people hate that. Whereas like someone like Baker, he throws in interceptions, he's pissed off. He throws a touchdown, he's extremely happy. You know, he's pumped up, and people love that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think there's a problem with the Green Bay offense. I think the problem is more handing the ball off for 3 yards a carry 40 times a game versus anything Jordan Love is doing.
But don't you think that's the coach protecting the quarterback a little bit? Because that's kind of my take on it, is that Jordan Love's efficiency numbers look good because he's been protected a little bit by LaFleur. I think the real issue here is the offensive line. They've had some injuries there. Jenkins is out. Tom's been banged up. And the rest of it is not. Like those are clearly their two best offensive linemen. So I think they have offensive line issues that LaFleur has actually done a pretty good job of masking. But I think just going back to the Love conversation, that the reason they're not an elite offense is because they're not airing it out. They're not taking chances down the field. And that, I think that speaks to Love's overall ability a little bit.
I don't know if I would completely agree with that. Like if you look at Love, he's fine throwing the ball down the field. Like there's no real issue with it or anything. I do agree that I do think he checks down a little much, but I also, like, if people aren't getting open, I don't have a problem with a quarterback checking down. He doesn't really create turnover worthy plays. If you look at a lot of Green Bay's issues, they have very big downs where it's like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 11, stuff like that, where Jordan Love will put an absolute dime on someone and then they drop it. And drops have been an issue in Green Bay for years now. And I mean, I guess you can question, is it more difficult with, you know, how strong of an arm Jordan Love has? Is it more difficult and he's helping to create these types of drops and whatnot? But I don't know. I might just be a guy that is willing to blame anything but Jordan Love. Maybe that's just who I.
No, you make good arguments. I'm neutral on him, and you know it could go a lot deeper than the offensive line. I mean, this organization failed Aaron Rodgers for the latter years in bringing in any talent. I mean, he was very spoiled for a long time, but of course, Green Bay finally takes a wide receiver, and so far it's been a disaster in the first round of the draft. When you take a receiver that high, you expect a little bit more immediate dividends. I get it. Matthew Golden is a young player. He's injured now. He's banged up early in the season. Like, he couldn't get on the field much. Like, if you're investing in that high of a draft pick on a wide receiver, you do, expect a little bit more of an immediate return. Of course, Tucker Kraft got hurt. See, I can play this side too. So, there are reasons, to kind of defend Jordan Love here. Romeo Doubs is fine. Christian Watson is, when he's healthy, he's pretty good. He's not an alpha target earner possession guy though. So, in Jordan's Love defense, it's not like he has, imagine if they were able to get McMillan, and I'm just saying totally hypothetically and unreasonably, like a guy like him instead of Matthew Golden, it could have just made a world of difference for him. I don't know. He's fine. He's fine for me, but I think there are a multitude of issues. My take is I think maybe he's a part of it. I don't think he's a massive part of it, but I think I think the blame could go around a little bit there in Green Bay.
I think you said the main thing. Like, he's fine. He's a starting caliber NFL quarterback. I think we all agree with that, but he's not a difference maker. He's not in top 10 even. I don't think he's right on the borderline there, but he is definitely not Justin Herbert. He's not a top 5 guy he's not that.
It's so fun evaluating quarterbacks. I'm still trying to figure out if Marcus Mariota was good when he was kind of good, and that was a decade ago, and I still don't know. Is Jared Goff a difference maker? Is Jared Goff good here in the money, or is he a product of an amazing offense? What if you put Jordan Love in Detroit's offense with Ben Johnson, right? You could play that game too, like the surrounding cast, the scheme, the offensive line. I don't know.
The Packers, they good? No, we don't know.
we just pretty much rambled to say we don't know, Jeff. Right?
Yeah, we don't know.
20 minutes to say they might be.
Maybe. We'll find out. All right, let's go to the big D. The Cowboys, 3-point home dogs against the visiting Chiefs, 52.5 total. Bales, what do you like?
Yeah, I mean, this is just super straightforward for me in terms of what I'm going with here. It's Patrick Mahomes as one, and you're just pairing him with Rashee Rice. I think you can add like Travis Kelce there if you want to. I think you can go like take your shot on Xavier Worthy if you want. I don't care. But Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice. Dallas gives up so many passing yards per game. They give up a ton of yards to wide receivers. And at this point, Kansas City is pretty condensed, and we know that they're going to try to get the ball to Rashee Rice as much as possible. I think that's basically what you do. I think if you want like a bring back, I prefer CD Lamb. I know I said that last week. Keith made me look atrocious by him calling out George Pickens, who went off. But CD Lamb did have the massive target share. He just didn't convert. Also saw like way more air yards. It was just, Pickens was just way better. I don't know how else you could put it in that situation, but I still like the volume for Lamb. I think that it's a solid spot for him. I like the matchup slightly better. So yeah, I mean, Mahomes and Rice are the two very obvious. Everyone's going to be all over them. They're the correct ones. And then, if like you're playing DFS and want to bring back with that guy that can drop 30 plus fantasy points, CD Lamb's probably the guy I head to.
Yep. Keith?
Bales absolutely nailed that. I am 100% in alignment with him on this game. Rashee Rice is my number one target here. 26% target share last week. Receptions line sitting at 6.5. You can get plus money on the over there still, or at least you could an hour ago. That looks fantastic to me. The Dallas defense has been better, but they've really improved against the run. They traded for Quinnen Williams, obviously, who's a difference maker on the interior of the defensive line. They added Logan Wilson as well, an off-ball linebacker. Like everything they've done has been to improve the run defense. But the pass defense, I think, is still very gettable. Rashee looks great. I like the Mahomes call as well. And I'm going to side with Bales on this one. I'm on CD Lamb on the other side in this spot on this one. It was a Pickens week last week for the big play. I think they need more of the short underneath stuff, and that's kind of the role that Lamb has been playing. Kansas City has taken away outside wide receivers for years. And Lamb is going to be the guy in this spot, maybe even a little bit of Ferguson if you wanted to go that direction. But the Kansas City defense is really good. I think it's a tough spot for Pickens this week. So on him last week, I do still think Lamb's a little bit banged up, and that might be part of why Pickens has been able to be so good. But this is a really tough matchup for Pickens. So I'm with him on the Lamb side here.
Luch?
Yeah, I think Ferguson's sneaky. I mean, you said it, short stuff over the middle. That's exactly what he's offering, and he's able to do that with two elite studs on the outside. And the Chiefs are playing the fourth highest amount of two high shell safety looks this year. So that screams Ferguson to me. So I do think it'll be a little bit tougher sledding for Dallas this week. And, if you want to talk about the non-analytical factor, teams coming off just unbelievable highs, have a chance to get punched in the face early, and we'll see how they're able to respond. That could work two ways for Dallas, that unbelievable comeback against Philly. I'm not sure which way it's going to work, but I'm really interested to find out. Either they're going to keep going and having some momentum and cruise a little bit, or they're going to be a little bit comfortable now. I mean, after just probably the best regular season win they've had in, I don't know, quite some time, I suppose. But don't forget, for the first 25 minutes of that game, they were thoroughly getting their ass kicked. So I do like Kansas City in this game a lot.
How do you do the double high though? Like Dallas's high is higher, but Kansas City was also not looking good against Indy, and they came back to win in overtime, which I don't want to say saved their season, but it put them in a way better spot than a loss did.
I think it did save their season. So that's why I'm going completely the other way. I kind of like Dallas in this game. I feel like the Chiefs are tight. I think the Chiefs are playing tight, and I think Dallas is not playing tight. Dallas looked horrible, but you come back from 21-0, and it's not that their season's lost. I mean, they still have an outside shot to make the playoffs, but watching that game, they were playing with a looseness that I don't really remember seeing, and maybe a lot of that is Pickens. I mean, every time he caught the ball, he stands up and he points to the skies and he's doing his little dance. I don't know. I feel like I've been off Kansas City all year. I just feel like they're they've gotten older, and Andy Reid, as great a coach as he is it possible that maybe the game's starting to pass them by a little bit? I think it's possible. I mean, they've just looked very meh most of the season.
I think this is a get right spot for Andy Reid if you want to go there. I mean, listen, Matt
Possible.
Eberflus is playing checkers, and Andy Reid will be playing chess, and I will pick up on that matchup all day. Matt Eberflus is a terrible coach. I'll die on that hill for sure. I'm sure Keith would be up there with me too after, every near-death experience Matt Eberflus has put him through.
The underneath stuff to Rashee Rice is exactly how Andy Reid is going to pick it. And Kelsey's in that conversation as well. Like it's
right.
the path for them to just absolutely put up 450 yards of offense on this Dallas defense it's staring us right in the face. Like Patrick Mahomes, 300 yards. I don't know what the plus money is on that, but I like that bet.
Yeah. And I guess I would assume, not that they needed to learn it, but I guess the fact that the Cowboys came back is definitely going to be in the back of the minds of the coaches for Kansas City. This is not going to be a 30-carry game for Kareem Hunt or Pacheco or whatever. They're going to have to keep their foot on the gas, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. And Pacheco practiced, and we'll see if he's limited. I think that's really interesting. Something we definitely have to keep an eye on. In terms of the Cowboys and Matt Eberflus, they are playing a little more man coverage than they were earlier in the season. Before he took over last couple of years, they were like a bona fide man coverage team. And they were playing a league low 9% of man coverage in the first 6 weeks of the year. That number has crept up to the league average. So there's been a little bit of a philosophy change. Kudos to him for at least trying to make some changes. I'll give him that. He only has so much to work with though. I do feel for him a little bit initially. They got rid of Micah Parsons. He dealt with Deron Bland injuries, the whole nine, but they kind of revamped that front seven. I think that's a really good call. The secondary has kind of been I don't want to say it's been untested because we saw AJ Brown have an explosion in the first half against Dallas last week. So, I still worry about the Cowboys. And again, I don't think the Chiefs are perfect. The Chiefs are flawed, and we're not used to seeing the Chiefs flawed. So it's really strange. And maybe that's still kind of, shifting the market a little bit in certain things. But we, like I said at the top of the show, everybody has flaws. I think the Cowboys have twice as many as Kansas City does.
Good take. All right. The final game on Thanksgiving, the evening game, the return of Joe Burrow, the Bengals visiting the Ravens. Ravens are touchdown favorites. Another healthy total at 51.5. Keith, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I want to talk about the role that we saw for Mike Gesicki. Now, obviously, Jamar Chase was out, and we need to talk about the positions that actual wide receivers play, because that does play a little bit of a role here. Now T. Higgins is out with a concussion. What Mike Gesicki did last week was step immediately into a full-time slot role. He ran 72% of his routes from the slot. So he is not a tight end. He is the slot wide receiver in this Cincinnati offense. Now he's getting Joe Burrow back. Does his role decrease with Chase coming back, who's much more of a slot wide receiver than T. Higgins is? That's possible. But I still think it's way too big of a role for the number to be sitting at 30.5 receiving yards for Mike Gesicki, because I do believe that Chase will come into the slot, but he'll also operate on the outside plenty. Gesicki had 6 targets last week for 35 yards. I think that there's room up on that. The Baltimore defense has been much better, but I still think that they're beatable more through the air than on the ground. Cincinnati hasn't been able to run the ball all season. Getting Burrow back is certainly going to help the efficiency of the passing game, you would think. So Gesicki over 30.5 yards looks like one of my favorite bets of the week.
Yeah, Ian Hartitz tweeted this morning. Last year, Gesicki without Higgins, 5 games. Week 1, 318-0, but then 791-0, 773-0, 5-102, and 430. So yeah, arrows pointing.
Ladder situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's ladder this up here. He did run 20% of his routes from out wide as well. So 8% inline, 72% from the slot, and 20% outside. He is much more of a wide receiver than a tight end. So to your point there, he can operate as an outside wide receiver as well.
Some tight ends on the other side of the ball there, Bales. The Bengals seem to forget that there's a tight end on the field when they're playing defense.
Yeah, it never fails. Cincinnati against tight ends is like the number 1 spot in anything for NFL. Mark Andrews, I think, is relatively obvious coming off a bad week. I like him. Then we have Isaiah Likely, who also, It's like you just play the tight ends against Cincinnati. Like there's not that many things in the NFL that are just super simple where like you don't need to kind of debate and look at the plus and like the good, the aspects, the negatives, see everything about it. You can just play tight ends against Cincinnati, and that's really what we do here. I think if I'm choosing one, I'm choosing Mark Andrews, but really Andrews and Likely, I don't have any problem with either of them.
Yeah, I love that. I wish I could play. You can't play. Unfortunately, you can't play Gesicki, Andrews, and Likely in your DFS lineups. Because I think I would. I'd love to get all three of them in the lineup.
What do we make of the role for Likely this season? Because I want to hammer him. Like it is. He hasn't earned any targets. He's been on the field and just not being targeted. So I'm completely with Bales on it's the spot you want to attack, and you kind of just ignore the data, I think, and take the overs here on the tight ends. I'm completely with him, but digging in on it, it's not pretty stuff when we're looking at usage rates and things like that. Likely has a 9% target rate this year. Like that's and the reception prop is at 2.5. I think he's hit 3 receptions twice all season long. But I'm still on it. I'm right there with him.
Yeah, I think I'd be more comfortable with a touchdown prop bet on Likely than anything else. Andrews, I think you could Andrews could go 670 and a score. Likely could just catch one, but it's for in the end zone. But yeah, I think we've been waiting. I mean, it feels like for the last 3 decades for Isaiah Likely to burst out and become the dominant player that he seems like he could be. But yeah,
we saw it at times last year. It looked like Andrews was completely washed and Likely was taking over the lead tight end role here, and it just hasn't been the case at all this season.
Yeah.
What's really disappointing is they're not even using him in high touch equity roles, because I really want to bet him to score touchdowns, but it doesn't even make sense. Since week 8, he ranks 8th on the team. 8th. Like there are barely even 8 guys on the field on offense inside the 5-yard line. In snap share inside the 5-yard line, 48% behind tied with DeAndre Hopkins, behind Bateman. Patrick Ricard plays your boy Charlie Kohler. We hit him once this year for a touchdown, but they're not even using him where it matters the most. So the entire thing has been a true disappointment. I'm going to be 95 years old in a home. I'm not going to make it that long, but if I am, I'll be telling everybody, Isaiah Likely is going to break out next year. I'm telling you, It's like that meme. It's been 84 years. Maybe it's just never going to happen. I don't know. There has to be a reason why we've seen the talent. Maybe he's just not 100%. And he obviously missed some time and he was banged up. And maybe it's just a discrete thing where he just, isn't himself this year. I don't know, because the fact that he's not he should be a red zone monster with his skill set. So I'm out.
This game feels like it could get very wacky though, doesn't it?
I want to talk about Chase Brown. I was a little apprehensive about him being the chalk in DFS. Obviously, we know New England very stingy against the run. The guy has 107 yards. Out of every running back that had at least 10 carries last week, he's either 6th or 7th in missed tackles forced per attempt too. So, what's the reason behind Chase Brown playing better? He's getting some volume. Maybe they're just not getting slaughtered as much as they were in the beginning of the year. He still saw 4 targets last week, only had 2 catches. So I think Chase Brown is interesting. I mean, that was a tough matchup against New England, at least to run the ball. Obviously, Jamar Chase was out for spitting, which is something I thought I've never said on this show. And we've said it twice this year, which is crazy. The over absolutely smacked in terms of guys being suspended for spitting, and who knows, maybe we'll have one more before the season's over. Everybody's doing it.
I love Chase this week with Burrow back and the season kind of over. Chase last year, 2 games against the Ravens, 10 193-2, which sucked, compared to 11 264-3.
I get it. It's Thanksgiving, Joe Burrow. Woohoo, but if the Ravens play from ahead, and the Ravens haven't been great lately either, but if they do get that lead against this bad Bengals defense, it puts Zach Taylor in such a bad spot, because you want to protect your franchise quarterback. But how are you going to do that if you're behind 10, 12, 14 points going to the second half? You're going to have to send the guy out there to just drop back. I think for as long as they can, I think they're going to try to protect him a little bit and give some volume to Chase Brown. That being said, though, Jeff, they just might not be able to do it if they want to try to win the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I disagree. I don't think Burrow's going to be throwing the ball all over the field.
I can't believe he's playing. I gotta be honest.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. If he's healthy enough to play, I mean, what are they? They're 3-9. Is that right? I mean, or is they 4-8? I don't even remember. But they're not making the playoffs. The season's over for them. But like, they're not bringing Burrow's not coming back unless he's. I can see this game very quickly becoming a back and forth. Like, holy shit! I can't believe I'm going to stay up and watch this game. You know,
they also can run spoiler on Baltimore.
Yeah,
they beat Baltimore. Baltimore's
look terrible.
Yeah, they're in a real questionable spot for playoffs at this. I mean, they're fine right now in terms of like what they're doing because the division's bad, but they lose this game to Cincinnati, and they're not obviously not out of it because they still get to play the Steelers, but they're in a pretty tough spot where they can't make many mistakes then, and I don't know. It's weird to bring Burrow back, but like I'm 100% with Jeff. Like, you don't bring him back unless you feel comfortable that he's going to go and you're going to let him play. Like, Joe Burrow's not in there to hand the ball off. Granted, I understand where Luch is coming from. They're obviously not just going to throw the ball 60 times. They're like, Chase Brown's still going to touch the ball. But like, you can do that with literally anyone if that's your game plan. Whereas if Burrow's in there, you still rely on Joe Burrow.
So if this isn't calling for some blood and some new life, I don't know what is, but the Bengals had 0 snaps inside the 5 or the 10 last week. So just from a product standpoint, I guess Joe Flacco might have some more time to have his, solo beer at the bar during happy hour that he loves so much now, at least. So good for him. I just, how important is it to these teams to play spoiler on their rivals rather than protecting your franchise? What if he goes out? I don't even want to put bad juju on it, but we know what the floor of him playing is inevitably bad. It could be horrific. The range of outcomes is something really bad could happen. He could go out there and throw 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Cool. What does that get you? Absolutely nothing when it comes to January. I love it for the game. I have Joe Burrow in a lot of my season long stuff, but from like a real life perspective, I think it's pretty dumb that he's playing football this week.
45-41 Bengals.
Oh God.
Write it down.
Oh God. So basically you said just take the over, right? And just forget it.
I don't see how this game doesn't shoot out. The Ravens, this is a get right spot for the Ravens. They've looked horrible. They've won. They're 4-0 since Jackson came back, but they have not looked good doing it, right? This is a get right spot against the Bengals. They've had some rough games. They've had to play the Browns defense. They played the Vikings defense. But, they looked in against the Jets this week, right? This is a get right spot for the Ravens. And we know that the Bengals can move the ball no matter what happens. And now they got Burrow back. So I don't know. I'm going to drink my bourbon, eat my turkey, take a nap. I'm going to wake up for this game.
The only question I have about Baltimore is since coming back, Lamar Jackson hasn't averaged more than 4 yards per carry in any game. He actually has averaged under 3 yards a carry in 3 of the 4 games. Prior to getting hurt, he averaged 8 or more yards a carry in 3 of his 4 games and 5 yards or more in every single game. He's not 100%. There's something up because those numbers don't just change like that. And he's still running a reasonable amount. He had 7 attempts last week, I think. 9 was the highest that he's gotten to. But it doesn't feel like they're just going to I don't know if I would necessarily say as get right for Baltimore because I don't believe that they can until Lamar Jackson's healthy. But I do completely agree. This feels like an offensive game.
Got big prop lines for Henry, 90.5. Jamar Chase, Vegas didn't screw around. They set him up around 90 as well. You make a good point though. Lamar, he hasn't run the balls effectively or really as much. And who else does that affect? An aging Derrick Henry. Now you want to talk about a get right spot. How about the Bengals run defense? That being said, it is coming into December, Derrick Henry's time, but boy, it does look like he has lost a step finally. Still very good, but clearly he's lost at least a little bit of a step. So I think, Derrick Henry in general is probably the most polarizing player prop for me because we've seen how bad the Bengals run D has been this season. If he can't get right against Cincinnati, I think maybe they lose the game. Honestly, I think I don't know. I mean, I'm talking myself into Chase Brown receiving yards, actually 18.5, with Baltimore being a touchdown favorite. Obviously no T Higgins is a big deal. Brown is really good with the ball in his hands after the catch. So I might hit that Chase Brown 18.5 number we saw. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Derrick Henry before we move on? Obviously, he's a huge part of this slate for Thursday.
It's a big number. I mean, he hasn't looked entirely himself, I guess. I mean, he could break through at any point, being who he is. But I mean, he hasn't really. I mean, how many 100-yard games even has he had this year?
4, I believe. To be fair, so Henry was really bad when Lamar Jackson was out, and then now Jackson's back, and Henry hasn't been Derrick Henry, but he's flashed Derrick Henry. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else, but
it's there.
Yeah, the upside's there, and this is a good spot. Like I could see Derrick Henry going for like 120 and 2. I could also see them just like sending out and being like, all right, Lamar can't run as well. Let's just see if he can throw it against us and then see what happens.
Yeah, it is crazy to see these rushing numbers for Lamar. 11 yards on 7 carries against the Jets, 10 against Cleveland, and 36 against the Vikings.
To be fair, though, he hasn't had to run in those games. They won. I mean, they haven't looked great, but they've won those games relatively handily.
Even watching him, though, you can see him hesitate way more than he has throughout his career. Like, he's just not as willing to take off. Like, you can see there's something wrong still there.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. And I mean, don't look now. He has 1 passing touchdown in his last 3 games also. So what has he been doing is the question. Just surviving and advancing pretty much, Granted, he played the Jets and the Browns and the struggling Vikings and the Dolphins before that, where he went off. So really, hasn't been tested. That being said, that 25.5 number, it is so hard to just not hit the over. I know there's a lot of circumstances right now. I mean, he's been a certified Bengal killer in his career too, especially on the ground. So
I can't think of a prop this week that I want to stay further away from than the 25.5 number on the margin. Like, either way, I mean that I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah, but how juicy are his alt numbers going to be? 35 and 40 is probably when else are you going to? You're right. But
I kind of agree with you. I don't know. He hasn't looked right, and they haven't needed him to look right either. So I think, what happens if the game is, fourth quarter, 35-35, I don't know. We'll find out.
Need to win every game. Desperate.
Yeah. Well, and again, they've won handily since the 4 games since Lamar's been back, right? They haven't been challenged really. I really think they might be challenged tomorrow, Thursday night.
They might be. It's Joe Burrow. I definitely want to throw a little Eagles Cowboys in there if you guys have another 5 minutes or so. I just for our guy Keith Eister here specifically.
Oh, Eagles Bears. Yeah, let's talk. Yeah, we've managed to talk an hour about 3 fucking games here. All right, Friday we got Black Friday football. Eagles are 7-point favorites on the road against the Bears. All right, Keith. I mean, you didn't need to even tell me who you like in this game. I mean, you might as well get a tattoo.
Seriously. So I will say, for the first time in a month plus, Colston Loveland over receiving yards is not one of my favorite bets of the entire week. I do still like it. I am betting it because it's still too low. But this is a really difficult matchup. Philly's been awesome against the tight end. But Colston Loveland is still a dude, and he should have a prop much higher than 27.5 receiving yards. It's just not the complete smash that it has been for a month straight. He did hit for the 5th time in a row for us last week. We've been on him every single week, so we're free money at this point. But it's a really tough matchup. But the prop is much closer to right than it has been in a long time. My actual favorite bet from this game is Luther Burden. He's right around that same number. We finally saw him play 50% of the snaps for the first time all season long. He looks really good doing it as well. Zacchaeus only played 35% of the snaps. He's finally taken over this wide receiver 3 role. He's a much more talented player than Zacchaeus, and 30.5 receiving yards is way too low for Luther Burden. So that's my favorite bet. I'm still hitting the Loveland over. See if we can make it 6 in a row there. And then the running back situation is interesting as well. We saw Monangai out snap DeAndre Swift last week. So tough to touch the running back situation, but way in on Burden, slightly in on Loveland. That's where I'm at for my Bears this week.
Got anything this game that you like, Bells?
I think Keith nailed it. Those are like two lines that it feels hard to say, like, I love these because the spots are good. And it's more of like, hey, they just set these too low. I'm going to take them. I also think that that's the case for DeAndre Swift's receiving yards. We know that Philly will let you throw to running backs. Swift played 15 or ran 15 routes last week. I know it's not ideal ever when you get the type of backfield there where, like, it's not even like we know exactly what they're going to do. Like, you could tell me that Swift is going to play 65, 70% of the snaps this week to Monungai's 30, 35. And I'll be like, yeah, okay. Like, it's, that makes sense. Or you could go like 50-50. I don't really necessarily know, but I do know that Swift is relatively electric when he gets out in space. This is a spot where he should get some looks there. And I believe he said it only like 10.5 receiving yards. Like, it's just a really low total. So those are probably the three spots. I don't really have any idea what to do on the Philly side. I guess like Devonta Smith would probably be my top play. I think that his lines are set relatively low yet, but there's nothing there that I feel good about.
I like Saquon Barkley. And then, after the Eagles, it's tough to trust anything the Eagles are doing, right? Like, but how do you suck the least when it matters? We talked about teams that might stink the least when it turns to winter, might be the best in the NFL. You just turn around and figure it out what your best player was, Saquon Barkley. And, there was a point in the year where we thought the Bears were looking better against the run. Since week 8, they're still second worst in yards before contact per attempt. So they're still kind of losing around the line of scrimmage, towards the bottom of the league in stuff rate as well. Lane Johnson's a big one, though. He's questionable. I saw a stat that he is 15-20. The Eagles are 15-24 without him since he was drafted overall, which is really interesting. A line who has been decimated on and off with injuries as well. I mean, you can't really play the blame game with the Eagles, as much as you'd want to if you're an Eagles fan, but still, Cam Jurgens has been hurt. Johnson's been dinged up. Someone's hurt every week, it feels like. I think Barkley, it's a nice spot for him, but you stole my thunder a little bit with the Luther Burden call. I love the role for him. I've just been a little high on him since they drafted him. But I do think he is going to be heavily involved. And if they're going to trail by a touchdown or so, I think his wheels up for Luther Burden as well. The one guy in the chat on Friday mushed the living hell out of DJ Moore. He was with us on Luther Burden. He said, DJ Moore is not that guy. Football's a beautiful thing, isn't it? DJ Moore scores twice on Sunday. Arguably his best game of the season, I suppose. What I guess just in a nutshell, Keith, can you trust any of these Cowboys, any of these Bears receivers? Like fully. Like, I know Luther Burden, we like that small number, but from like a week to week basis, is it just kind of roulette?
Yeah, it is a little bit of roulette. I still think it's Odunze ahead of DJ, just from a target share perspective. But DJ's a playmaker; like he can break one. It's just a good problem to have. There's a lot of weapons in this offense. But as far as defined roles, I think the target share is definitely going to go Odunze's way. But as far as who scores the most fantasy points every week, that's a complete toss-up.
All right. Any final words on the Friday game? I guess that's it. Hey, for all y'all tuning in, we appreciate you. We hope you guys have an awesome holiday week. Do us a favor. Give us a follow on YouTube. We really appreciate it. We're not done for the week yet. You can catch Keith Bells and I tomorrow at noon to talk NBA. There's one loaded NBA slate on Wednesday before they take a break for Thursday football. That being said, we have a ton of content up. NBA, NHL. We're about to be loaded with Thursday NFL content. We'll, of course, have the weekend covered for week 13. And I guess that's about it. So we'll be back next Friday. Not this Friday. We'll see you out next Friday. So enjoy the holiday week with your friends and family. For Bells, Jeff, and Keith, I am Justin. Good luck and have a good night, everybody.